Welcome into Triple Zeros. I'm your host, Josh Buckhalter. Hit up Twitter, follow me on Twitter at Josh G Buck. Hit up the Facebook at Triple Zeros, TRIPLZROS. Hit up the website at jukesjumps.wordpress.com. The email address is triplezeros@gmail.com. That's TRIPLZROS @gmail.com. Man, Conference Championship Week. This episode is there's a lot to cram in. You have Conference Championship Sunday in the NFL. You have a lot of coaching things still happening. You have some speculation for player movement attached to that. You also have the NBA coming up. It's the halfway point for a lot of teams. I think either everybody's there or everybody's just about there at the halfway point. And you're starting to see some contenders separate from the pack. You're starting to see the guys who are going to be, the teams who are going to be in the bottom half of the lottery. You're starting to see some player movement already and some more speculation in that regard. And really just a great time. There was also a major cheating scandal in baseball, but that's a conversation for another time and another show. So for this one, we are going to start off talking about the Conference Championship Sunday. Everybody's favorite week seems to be the divisional round, last weekend's games, which were great. Don't ever get me wrong about that, but I've always been a little bit partial to these just because it's the final game before the Super Bowl, which has been a letdown at times. Now recently it's been better. The last couple have been better, but it had for a stretch there become a little bit boring. Maybe that was the Patriots' dominance. I don't know. Maybe that's what that was. But obviously they won't be there this weekend. We'll have two games, two great teams, two really opposing diametrics in both instances, both conferences. The first game is going to be the Titans taking on the Chiefs. Now, these teams did face in Week 10 with the Titans coming out on top 35-32. In that game, if you recall, Harrison Butker had his potential game-winning field goal blocked by Tennessee's Joshua Kalu. Now, this game was a bit of a back and forth, obviously, if it ended up 35-32, right? It needed a blocked field goal to seal it for the Titans, but Patrick Mahomes, 446 yards through 3 touchdowns. He did take 2 sacks in that game. But Damian Williams on the ground, 19 carries for 77 yards. Now, you know that it's kind of cliche to say that the running back, you have a better chance to win when you run the ball X amount of times. Or, oh, well, look at this. This running back got this many carries and they won the game. That's irrelevant. But I do see a trend that good things happen for Williams when he gets these carries and good things happen for his team when they feed him the ball. Who knows if it'll be able to sustain itself in this game. Both of these teams are really kind of mediocre at best against the ground. It's not really something that I think you're going to see too much on from Kansas City side. I think you're going to see them try to get out to that early lead. As they do, they're a much better team when they're consistently attacking. But if Tennessee gets the ball early and slash a lead, look for them to just ride Derrick Henry to hopefully the Super Bowl. Tennessee's coming in rushing for 200 plus yards in 3 straight games as a team. In that last game, you had Tyreek Hill catching 11 of 19 targets for 157 yards and a touchdown. That's something to watch out for too, because I'm pretty sure that the Titans secondary is not trying to have that happen to them again. That's got to be a little more than a little bit embarrassing for them. You had Travis Kelce 7 for 77 and a touchdown. Mecole Hardman caught 1 catch, but he did go for 63 yards and a touchdown. And in that game, might have been the last game Ryan Tannehill went over 100 yards. No, it wasn't. But he did have 181 yards and 2 touchdowns in that game. He took 4 sacks. Derrick Henry, though, that was around the time when you started realizing that what they were going to do to sustain their winning ways. Derrick Henry had 23 carries, 188 yards, and 2 touchdowns in that game. Now, this is going to be, remember I was talking about those opposing diametrics. You have Derrick Henry and Patrick Mahomes. One team wants to air it out, throw it all over the yard with a little pizzazz to it, and that got the team's quarterback an MVP award last year. Didn't get them much in the way of postseason, but I digress. Derrick Henry and the Titans, they are lining up to punch you in the mouth, and that's something that I just can't wait to see. This is going to be a very interesting thing to watch because I've been doubting Tennessee the entire postseason. But if they are able to get this lead, I don't see any reason why they can't come out with another victory. I'm kind of tired of doubting them. Now, I might stop short of picking them, and I'll get to the picks at the end of this segment, but I kind of find it hard to say that they won't come out victorious just off the strength of who it is that's playing. I think that's incredibly dismissive of what they've accomplished so far this season and the surprise run that they're on. Now, usually at this point, you see talent win out, and you see I think the experience come into play overall. Now, that's not to say that the Titans don't have experience, because Mike Vrabel is their head coach, and we know he knows a thing or two about playing in the Super Bowl and about playing against Andy Reid offenses as well. But I think that Patrick Mahomes, the talent level that he has, the talent level of this Chiefs offense overall outweighs that of the Titans. And, man. But again, I arrive to that same point of how many times am I going to say that that the Titans are going to need Ryan Tannehill to throw this postseason, and they don't. Derrick Henry had a $190 last game. Oh, he could go for 220 this game. I'm not saying that he won't. That's something to definitely monitor, but it's just not as cut and dry as I think people want to make it seem, because of the fact that you have such a high-scoring offense. The Chiefs are 5th in points. Tennessee comes in at 10th. In yards, it's Kansas City with the edge, 7th to, it's a slight edge, though, to Tennessee's 8th. Passing yards, though, this is where you start to see it get a little bit skewed for either team, depending on the subject. Passing yards, it is heavily favoring Kansas City 4th, while Tennessee comes in 21st. In rushing yards, it is the other way around. However, you have the Titans ranking 3rd and the Chiefs coming in at 23rd. So I think you see it's clear how each team is going to try to beat you. But I don't think that you can necessarily discount what it is that the Chiefs are, the Kansas City style, what it does to a team like the Chiefs. Now, they're so explosive, they don't need to have a lot of plays on the field and a lot of time to beat you. We saw that last when they had that 7 straight scoring drives, touchdown drives against the Texans. That was a wild game. But I think the way that the Titans do it, it kind of lulls you into that false sense of you have time until you don't, because the clock has been running this whole time because they've just been trucking. Now, we'll see how the Chiefs defense, which has been better this year than it has been in recent years, how it holds up, but it's not 6'3", 250. It's not too many things that you can really do to stop a freight train when it's moving at top end speed. So I want to say that the talent of the Chiefs is going to win out here, but I can't keep picking against Tennessee. Maybe I do. Maybe I need to just keep picking at Tennessee, because this is a feel-good story. And again, I told you about that Andy Reid versus a Bill Belichick disciple and Mike Vrabel. That's something to keep an eye on too, because we know the struggles that Andy Reid teams have had in the playoffs against Bill Belichick. Wink to the Super Bowl with the Eagles. That didn't turn out too well for him either. So a Bill Belichick disciple knocking off Andy Reid would kind of be some sort of bittersweet victory for the Patriots and BB himself, but don't look for it. And again, I'll make a prediction, I'll make a pick on this game at the end of the segment, but it's not as easy as it seems. And at the same time, you almost have the feeling like the other shoe has to drop on Tennessee at some point in time. So while I stew on that one, let's go to the next game. The other championship game, the NFC championship game, the Green Bay Packers taking on the San Francisco 49ers. Now, this game is also a rematch, a little bit of a theme here, which is interesting because this is the NFL's 100th season, and they went through a lot of effort to make sure that there were a lot of rematches, historic rematches during their primetime games this season. So I think that was something that when you see it now playing out in the postseason, they're probably just licking their chops no matter what happens. But I think that they have a particular favorite. I've been talking about that for a few weeks in my Super Bowl wish list. But again, I'm getting sidetracked here. The last time that these two teams met was in Week 12. The San Francisco 49ers thumped Green Bay 37-8. This was in the Bay. Aaron Rodgers had 105 passing yards, 1 touchdown. He did lose a fumble. He got sacked 5 times, and that was the big thing. He was just never comfortable back there. That defense, that was the game I think that I had to come out and say the defense was legit. I've been hating on him a little bit, but man, 5 sacks and got to him against a offensive line that I know as a Bears fan that is very good in pass protection and keeping Aaron Rodgers clean and buying him the time that he needs. They didn't have the passing game going, however. He and Devontae Adams connected for 7 catches for Adams, 43 yards and a touchdown. The Jones-Williams combo out of the backfield only had 83 yards on 24 combined carries. So you saw the 49ers kind of dominate this game offensively. Jimmy G had 253 yards in the air, 2 tugs. He did take 3 sacks. The combo of Mostert and Coleman, 17 carries, 84 yards, but they had 2 touchdowns. Now, I know the yardage is there, but those 2 touchdowns are clearly a major difference. When you see the final score, I think that's kind of self-explanatory. The big game, though, was George Kittle. 6 catches, 129 yards, and a touchdown in this game. Now, this is all Week 12 stuff. And Deebo Samuel had 2 catches, 50 yards, and a touchdown. Now, that was a thumping that Aaron Rodgers said that team kind of needed because they had gotten to reading the headlines and feeling themselves a little bit. So it kind of humbled them. We'll see how humbled they were because this is a very tough 49ers secondary. Now, I do have to mention that they did play in 2018. Jimmy Garoppolo did not play in that matchup. He was out with the torn ACL. Aaron Rodgers had 452 yards, 2 touchdowns, took 3 sacks. Devontae Adams had 10 catches, 132 yards, and 2 touchdowns as he, Jimmy Graham, and Marquez Valdez-Scantling all went over 100 yards in that game. That was C.J. Beathard, may his brother rest in peace, threw 245 yards in that game, 2 touchdowns, and 1 pick. Raheem Mostert had 87 yards on the ground on 12 carries, while Matt Breida chipped in 61 on 14 carries and a touchdown. So these teams have some history that goes back a couple of seasons. The Kyle Shanahan and Aaron Rodgers face-off is more pertinent than, I guess, the Jimmy G and Aaron Rodgers. It has more tenure, at least, because they didn't face each other last time. Now, historically speaking, more history. Alex Smith, Aaron Rodgers was famously passed over by the 49ers and many other teams, to be fair. But the 49ers, his hometown, when he grew up rooting for the 49ers, was passed over in favor of Alex Smith. We know Alex Smith has been a journeyman, is now in Washington recovering from multiple surgeries on a horrific leg injury and possibly winding up here in Chicago. But that is a running narrative for this game that, there's some kind of revenge factor being played up to here. The other thing that you got to look for, take it to the tape, man. The Niners come in second in points. Green Bay is 15th. The Niners come in 17th in the run. Green Bay is 23rd, against the run, and the Niners come in ranked first against the pass. So both of these teams could be taken to the ground. The Niners by choice, because that's by design. That's how their offense is operating, how their offense operates. But Green Bay, they're going to have to do something a little bit off schedule for them and go to the ground more often to open up that passing game. It's going to be tough. Richard Sherman and those boys in the back end are not giving up too many easy yards, so Rodgers is going to have to be on point. We've seen him get a little sloppy sometimes, hold on to the ball, not go for the check down, trying to get the big play, trying to take his focus off when he thinks he's got a call that didn't happen. So we'll see if they're able to get something going this time around, but the fact that it has to go back to San Francisco can't feel good. They would have liked to have gotten the number 1 overall seed so they could host the game this time. But, man, again, just like in the AFC, when you have two very diametrically opposed styles clashing here in a passing-led offense in Green Bay, despite what they try to do with the balance. And they do a good job of incorporating Aaron Jones and Williams as well. But you still know that this offense is Aaron Rodgers' offense, period. Point blank, period. And that's how it should be. San Francisco, on the other hand, relies on Jimmy as little as possible. And we've seen when he gets asked to do too much that he can be turnover prone as well. So there's 2 things to keep an eye on. Both of these quarterbacks Aaron Rodgers is great. He's a Hall of Famer. Jimmy G has talent, has some skills. We'll see what his ceiling is. But both of them have a tendency to, or have an, I don't want to say propensity for Rodgers, but they are both very capable of throwing the game away just as much as they are of winning it. The winning it part more so in Rodgers' case. So that's just this weekend. A trip to the Super Bowl is on the line. This is not winner take all because, again, there's one more game. But, man, this is it. Again, this is my favorite weekend of the year because these are the last 4 teams, last 2 games before the big game where it can be more festivity than actual product. That kind of disappoints me. But this one is that fight for that berth that a lot of guys have. This is what you play your whole career for. Always looking forward to that. Now, that being said, my Super Bowl wish list, I'm actually still alive. My last 2 are these 2. After I crossed them off, obviously that's how it worked out. But they were on here, the matchups of San Francisco and the Titans and Green Bay and Kansas City. I don't think anybody really wants to sit and watch Titans 49ers Super Bowl because that would just be probably 30 minutes, 11 runs, and about 10 passes combined. The score will be 7-3. But as a Bear fan, I can't necessarily say that I want to see a Chiefs-Packers one either, for obvious reasons. Multiple obvious on either side. So I'm torn. For everybody out there, I want everybody out there to be able to see a good game, and that would be Chiefs-Packers. I think that would be a much more entertaining game, many more fireworks in that game, much more explosive with those offenses. But I kind of feel like we deserve the Titans 49ers ground and pound slugfest with how the NFL has tried to trend itself towards the passing league to come full circle and have two teams led by running games and defense. That would be poetic too. I think the league wants Chiefs Packers. I think we deserve quote unquote Titans 49ers. That's going to do it for this segment. That is the NFL. Oh, no, it's not. I'm jumping the gun here. I'm getting a little ahead of myself. You still have to talk about a couple of coaching hires and coaching moves and some controversy elsewhere. And, of course, I have to adjust the breath. I tried to jump the gun super early that time. Jason Garrett is interviewing for the Giants offensive coordinator position per Mike Garofalo and Ian Rappaport. Charles Robinson says that he'd be surprised if Garrett didn't take that job, get that job. I think that'd be hilarious as he goes and joins with Mike Judge's staff or Joe Judge's staff and wins that division at 8-8 next year. I'm talking a little trash, but Jason Garrett staying in the division, I think, is something the Cowboys don't necessarily want to see. You know how Jerry feels about him, and to have to let him go had to be painful for him. But to now have to possibly face him and have his offense now. Say what you want about what his offense actually is. Maybe he'll do better in the coordinator role. We've seen that often. I just think that it's funny. It's a funny thing. It's almost like he came back on purpose, a little bit scorned because of how things ended with him in Dallas. Now, he had a long time and nothing really came of that, but I'm not sure that this won't necessarily be. He's got a good foundation to start. Let's start with that. He's got Daniel Jones. He's got Saquon Barkley, and they have. That's about it. I'm not gonna fluff it up either any more than that. I just think that he's going to be extra motivated. He's going to know how to attack that defense at least, and that could lead to some interesting battles for the next 2 to 3 years at least. Now, I am a little bit surprised he didn't take a year off, a la Mike McCarthy, who ended up replacing him in Dallas, but I think that kind of shows to how much he feels like he can actually contribute and how much he feels like he was done wrong by Dallas for some reason. I don't necessarily agree with that, but that's how I tend to perceive it when coaches jump to a team within the division, especially taking the position as a coordinator. Now, he was probably going to take that position anyway, but to do it within the division, I think is kind of just showing you that he kind of wants to get a little bit of payback. In human nature, that's just how it goes. In other coaching news, the Carolina Panthers are hiring LSU offensive coordinator Joe Brady. He's returning to the NFL per Adam Schefter's sources. LSU's having the greatest college season ever. They're about to have the one of the worst mass exoduses ever. They just lost their defensive coordinator. Obviously, Joe Burrow is about to be the number 1 overall pick, if not number 2. Maybe Cincinnati does something crazy and goes for Chase Young. I don't think so. Don't think that the state of Ohio allows Joe Burrow to leave again. But the Panthers are solidifying that coaching staff under Matt Rule. And again, with all these new faces, let's just see what happens, because we do know that Cam Newton was rumored to be on the way out there. They said that he might stay, and now you just don't know. So keep an eye on that, because I think Cam, if healthy, still has a lot to offer. We'll just see if he actually has a chance to go somewhere and prove that. And I think once we do, we'll see how healthy he really is. Because that foot injury at the end of the preseason made me mad to see that happen to him. I was a little disappointed they left him out there and that he ended up sustaining that one. Hopefully it's not a sign of his body breaking down. But again, back to the LSU story and how they had such a great regular season and how it's just kind of falling apart. Aside from having the mass exodus of personnel, including coaches and players, they also had Odell Beckham show up, and after the game, gave players money, but players on the team money, impermissible benefits, on live television. The school tried to come out and say that it was fake. Joe Burrow in an interview said it was real. That stirred up a little bit of Twitter scandal because people were like, oh, he's out here driving. It was on television. I'm pretty sure that nobody believed that it was fake, because that's not what they're going to do. They're going to assume it's real just so they can make a statement about what's going on here. On top of that, though, it got worse. So on top of giving them impermissible benefits on live television, he also smacked the rear end of a security officer. I'm not sure if it was a police officer or just a security guard, but it was a security officer working security for this event. Smacked him on the butt as the officer was in the locker room trying to chastise players, cite players for smoking after they just won a national championship. Now, There are multiple things wrong with this. First of all, who called the police to come in and get them from smoking the cigars in the locker room? Let them celebrate. I get it. I'm not a big person who just likes to throw out that rules are meant to be broken one, but you won a championship. I think you should be able to smoke a cigar in the dang locker room. Come on, man. Seriously. On top of that, though, Odell smacking the butt of the cop probably wasn't the best move. I'm not sure what he thought that was going to accomplish. I'm not sure why he felt that that was the appropriate time to do that, period. Or, if you thought that you could do that, whatever. But why he thought he could do that then, or why he thought that that was a good time for that, is beyond me. On top of that, though, he now has an arrest warrant for this, for simple battery. Now, he wasn't arrested at the scene, and the officer kind of, scolded him, but Odell mocked him, and it just went. The story, everybody thought was just going to go away. Nah, not so fast. I just don't know exactly what's going on, but I do know that it is a shame that Odell became such a major story, and I'm not trying to pile on to him because whatever. I'm just going to say I do think it's a bit of a shame that he made himself such a big part of it before and after the game. It wasn't just this. He was making sure that he made his rounds before. Now, he's a major superstar in the NFL as far as recognizing his image, and people know his face when they see it. So it was gonna be about him to some extent, but I think he went above and beyond to do so. And it's not surprising. Odell being a spectacle, that's a shock. Not really. I just think that this is one of the rare times where I have to agree that it was detrimental to the ultimate thing that was going on. He made himself bigger than the moment, in a moment that he really shouldn't have been even a footnote. Other than, oh yeah, he went to that school too. That should have been about those players right then and right there, and he kind of took that moment away from them, and it's kind of been tainted. And now the school is reviewing it, and you have the crazy people talking about they should void the national championship for having impermissible benefits and all that stuff. Stuff it. Get over it. Get past it. But Odell needs to chill. That's a bit much, bro. Chill out. Like smacking the cop on the booty and handing out hondos on camera. Do it off camera. I'm just saying. Like, I'm not trying to condone him doing it, but like on TV, I'm not sure what any of this was supposed to accomplish other than bringing attention to yourself. And that's why this is one of the few times that I have to kind of agree with everybody that Odell went a bit above and beyond. Before I get to my heartbreaking bear, so real quick, Antonio Brown, somebody check on that man. We all know about his live stream where he was talking about the mother of his children, with his children present, and chastising her as well as the police officers who were trying to intervene in the situation. I don't know. I'm not going to comment about all of that personal. I don't care because, wow, it was just a lot to unpack. But I do know that this behavior is erratic, and it ended up getting his agent, Drew Rosenhaus, to sever ties with him for the time being. Now, two parts of that. That's partially due to money, but also the antics aren't worth attaching yourself to Antonio Brown right now. And I think that's something that Antonio is going to have to kind of work off. Now, that being said, he is currently training to fight Logan Paul in the boxing match. So I'm not sure exactly where his career is headed. He's been releasing music videos. He was supposed to be going back to college. All of this to say, it's a lot happening, and I hope that it ultimately works out for him. But it is a bit strange to see the highs and lows in one day that go on in this man's career or his life. Just wild. And he puts it all on social media. It's. You want to say you're concerned? Who knows? I almost feel like it's scripted. You know what I'm saying? It's so wild. You kind of just like, this can't really be happening, but apparently it is, and it just doesn't. It always leaves everybody kind of stuck as to what's gonna happen next because he's such a talented player, but he can't seem to get past these issues, and they just keep popping up. It's wild. Now, I've been sidestepping it and pushing it back. Had to talk about my Bears. First off, some good news. Congratulations to Super Bowl tackle Jimbo Covert and Ed Sprinkle, defensive lineman from the 50s, both making it to the Hall of Fame. Well-deserved. There's a lot of controversy over Covert because of his 2 Pro Bowls and few all-pro teams. I'm not going to complain. I mean, I don't know what you want me to tell you. I was not around for the Super Bowl, but I am a product of the Super Bowl. We'll just leave it at that. So, congrats to those 2. Well-deserved. Enjoy your place in Canton. I know Covert, I'm not sure about Ed Sprinkle, but congratulations to both of you on making it to the Pro Football Hall of Fame. In other news, some current news, the Bears hired John DeFilippo to be the QB coach. They promoted Dave Ragone to passing game coordinator. This after they hired Juan Castillo to be the offensive line coach, and they hired Bill Lazor to be the offensive coordinator. Now, all this means is Mitchell Trubisky will probably have a new voice in his ear in DeFilippo. He has been attached to Nick Foles when he threw 27 touchdowns and 2 picks. He was attached to Carson Wentz when he had his best season. That's the season that he ended up missing the playoffs because he was injured, and Carson Wentz led the Eagles to the Super Bowl. He has been better in a quarterback coach role than offensive coordinator role, as we saw with Jacksonville. He just got fired. Minnesota the year before that, where those quarterbacks had statistical good years, but they weren't necessarily good as a team. Now, that's again addressing him as a coordinator, not in his current role that he'll be serving as with the Bears. I'm still skeptical because I think that they are really they're telegraphing their move here. If they're not going to get Nick Foles, then I'm really confused as to what this is supposed to be, because you're really trying to bring all these scenarios that kind of came together. And I'll tell you why it's really, really out there. You are getting the people around who helped Nick Foles get to his goal. Like I said, if you don't go get him, I don't know what this is about, because I don't think Mitch is the same kind of quarterback, first of all. Second of all, when Foles was good in Philly, the head coach was Doug Peterson, a former quarterback himself. The offensive coordinator was Frank Reich, who ultimately became a head coach himself with the Indianapolis Colts. So to say that, DeFilippo is a great quarterbacks coach, he might be good, but let's not act like there weren't 2 other quarterbacks there. Frank Reich played in the Super Bowl. Let's not diminish the input and the impact that those other 2 quarterbacks had on Wentz and Nick Foles. We saw DeFilippo. I mean, it's hard to compare the 2 stints with Nick Foles. Nick Foles got hurt this year and missed most of the season. But they also have to deal with the fact that was 3 years ago now. You can't keep trying to recreate stuff. It's kind of disturbing to see them kind of follow these trends and be so far behind. I really like to see them be on the cutting edge of stuff, but they don't seem to ever be that way. They always seem to be like when they hired Matt Nagy. That was a offshoot of the everybody's rage to try to go and get the next Sean McVay. We see how that's turning out now. It's not really going too great for him. You see a lot of these coaches having to just kind of fade back into the background. Matt Nagy now is supposedly entering into the hot seat this coming season for Bleacher Report, which I actually agree with. But I'm just showing you how fast things change. He went from coach of the year to being on the hot seat now. It was actually speculation that he could be fired this offseason. That's how bad it got. So it's just a lot of wishing and hoping. And if the plan isn't Foles, man, good luck selling the fan base. Now, you've had other names attached. Andy Dalton when Bill Lazor got here. Again, I think with the other 2 moves, I think you have kind of seen that they have a definite idea. We heard them say that Mitch is the guy, but these actions show that they have plans to add to the quarterback room with somebody who can actually compete. Now, the other theory is that they are bringing as many quarterback minds in to really try to test Mitch and see what they can get out of him, and ultimately, if not, decide that they're going to move on. I think that if you do that, that might be a bit of a problem, because you're wasting another year of a Super Bowl caliber defense, and I'm starting to wonder what that even means, because if they don't get there, are they really a Super Bowl caliber defense? I'm just saying. Now, I think they could be, obviously, but if we're going based off the fact that they are as talented as they are, then we kind of got to see it in practice. Look at the 49ers. I've been telling you most of the season that I think that the 49ers are really going to be hindered by Jimmy Garoppolo when it comes down to it. But he's shown that he can take over when they need to and kind of shut me up, to be point blank honest with you. So I'd like to see that from Mitch. Now, we've seen him have good games, but it's usually against bad teams or the Minnesota Vikings. He owns the Vikings and the Lions. I'm not really surprised that he plays better, but his best games come against the Lions, and I'm not surprised he plays well against the Vikings. I'd like to see that against other teams. Now, only reason I said I'd like to see it is because I have to this season. I was one who said that he should probably go. I wanted them to go after Teddy Bridgewater. That doesn't seem to be the case. I'm not sure how they're going to justify, though, going after Nick Foles with all his money and not paying Teddy Bridgewater after they saw firsthand what he's done. If that's the case, then they're creating more questions. That's what I'm saying. If Nick Foles isn't the target, then they really are going to have a lot of explaining to do to the fan base as to what their end goal is. What are you? If you're trying to make mention to Nick Foles, your plan is already false. That's the problem. So I worry about Ryan Pace and Matt Nagy's ability to kind of plan contingencies, not to make a plan, but to plan on the backup. That's how we got Chase Daniels. Now he went 500 at the start. That's all you really can ask for. But I just want to make sure, and not listen to me outside talking about these guys who are in these roles for a reason. But I would like some assurance that there is a concrete plan and they're not just going to allow themselves to waste this defense. We've seen it many times, and I just fear that they're going to do so again, counting on a product. And then bringing in Andy Dalton doesn't do it for me. Bringing in Marcus Mariota doesn't do it for me. Cam, I was higher on Cam at the beginning of this process than I am now, so even that's kind of like, I don't really know. Bridgewater is what my that would be ideal. Nick Foles, if you can get the Jaguars to take some of that money, that'd be great. I don't know. I just don't know exactly what's going on, because the coaching hires point you to one direction, their words point you to a different direction, and their money will point you to a whole another direction. So, had to get that off my chest, man. It's rough. It's been a rough off season. Rough season, really. Just seeing what's happening. If you want to read my Bears stuff, you can always read my Bears stuff at Last Word on Pro Football. It's also posted to my website, Jukes and Jumpers. Bear down, man. Switching gears and getting that, now that that's off my chest and out the way. The NBA, have to talk about it. Ja Morant, the number 2 overall pick in this past draft, the man is going off in January. But first and foremost, let me talk about how his style is such to me, an outsider, a welcome divergence from what they've been going through. You know, that's the grit and grind city. You had the teams of Mike Conley and Zebo, and they're tough, below the basket, just gritty style. Ja, in tandem with Jaren Jackson, brings a lot of excitement and energy that they haven't had in quite some time. So I think that it has to be a welcome. Now, it's kind of like the breakup. When you break up with somebody, the next person is usually a good deal opposite of that last person. It's the same thing here. They moved on from Mike Conley and got to Ja, and it's shaking. If it's not grit and grind, I don't even know. I'm gonna have to come up with a name for this one, because I love it. I just like what I'm seeing. I like Ja. I wanted the Bulls to move up and get him. They didn't do so. They couldn't do so. Whatever the case may be, I think this kid's going to be a stud, and I think that if he keeps this up, he's going to have himself Rookie of the Year, despite what Zion might do. He won't have enough time, in my opinion, anyway, Zion that is, but I think Ja's going to help himself out, and he's starting to do so. This month in January, he's averaging 20 points, 8 assists, 60% field goal percentage, 44 from 3, and 88 from the free throw line. For the season, he's averaging 18, nearly 7 assists, and 3.5 boards. Now, 49% from the floor, 40% from 3, and 80 from the line. But that January, 20 and 8 as a rookie. Now, he's got free reign to do what he wants to do. That's fine. I don't think you could take away from the fact that this man is literally out here balling out, and again, reinvigorating a city that had kind of become stale. That was the problem with the grit and grind era of Memphis, is that when they fell behind, it kind of stayed that way. Now, we saw them make some noise and get to the postseason and kind of surprise them, but they weren't ever going to go deep because they didn't have the firepower. They are still maybe a year or two away, maybe a piece or two away. But I think with Ja and with Jaren, but Ja especially, man, that kid's special. I think that they have the foundation. They have their 2 anchors for this team to be a new version that when I come up with a nickname for it, believe me, I will let you know. But I think that team, that the sky's the limit for them, and Ja's ceiling has not even begun to be considered yet, because I don't think we even know. No one knew what he was until he became a sophomore. There could be another kind of quantum leap like that for him in his future. Now, I mentioned it a second ago. Zion Williamson was supposed to return this past week. He will return, supposedly, according to his head coach. or according to his GM, David Griffin, next week against the San Antonio Spurs on January 22nd. The question being bandied about, could he win Rookie of the Year, as I mentioned, with 38 games? I don't think so. I think, like I mentioned, Ja is out here doing it as a point guard, and that's a very prominent position. He's a very prominent player at that position, even as a rookie. I think he'll have that sewn up by the time it's all said and done because of his style, and if he maintains his health. 38 games is not going to be enough either. The fewest that a rookie has played and won the award was Patrick Ewing, playing in 50 games. So, also, we're not even talking about, but the guy that I've been kind of stumping for and championing and just kind of hoping to bring a little bit extra attention to, whatever is out there, hope I just added to it, Brandon Ingram and his 25 points a game. You can't just take the ball out of his hands either. He needs to still be successful. Lonzo's had some good stretches. Josh Hart's had some good. Derek Favors had 21 points tonight. So I think that if you are to do that, you risk breaking the chemistry, the flow, the feel, the rhythm of Brandon Ingram, who tonight against the Utah Jazz had a career-high 49 points, 8 rebounds, and 6 assists. That loss for the Jazz snapped a 10-game winning streak. Again, like I mentioned, Derek Favors had 21 points and 11 boards. Donovan Mitchell in this game tied his career high with 46 points, 6 boards, and 2 assists, and Rudy Gobert had 17 and 14. But back to the Pelicans. Brandon Ingram, 49 points. I told you he's averaging 25 this year. He's having a most improved player, all-star player type of season. I don't think that, man, I'm surprised the Zion's coming back. I thought they would rest him for the whole year, let him get that Rookie of the Year jump next year that we've seen become all the rage. But no, they're talking about bringing it back. I just don't want to see him throw off B.I. B.I. low-key is one of my favorite players. I like the project-type players who have all that potential, and I just like to see guys like that make it. So I hope he continues this ascension. I hope that he gets the recognition that he deserves, and I hope that it's just the beginning because I think that kid has all the talent in the world. Kyrie Irving, back in the news again. He's stirring up more controversy, talking about the Nets are 1 or 2 more pieces away from being legit, and they need to get a couple more pieces to help him and KD and Spence and Karras and DJ's talking about DeAndre Jordan, helping those guys out. Kind of sounded like he was talking about Joe Harris. There's speculation about who he was actually referring to, but none of that really matters. The game he said this after was a loss to the 76ers where Kyrie had 14 points on 6 of 21 shooting. You can't play bad and then go out and talk about we need more players. That's something you say when you balled out and you still caught an L. Fam, you can trip. You might be talking about yourself. And honestly, this isn't the finished version. This team will be much better with KD. Let's not act like his gravity on the floor is not going to be a major impact on them and what they're going to try to do next year. But Kyrie, bro, that was his first game back or second game back, something like that, off of an extended injury. Stop. Now, that's the chastised side. The reality side is that was fresh off of that loss, like I said. He was just off injury, like I said. And it's not untrue. It's just untrue when you factor in the fact that they don't have KD right now, and Kyrie himself was not in the rhythm of playing how this team is going to play. They've dealt with injuries all year. He wanted that leadership role. Maybe he's accepted that he's not going to have it now. It's funny, him and KD both have kind of shied away from it as of late. But you can't say those type of things and not expect it to get any kind of flack from the media. This is a shocking all type of day and age with reporting and newscasting. When you say stuff like, we need a couple more pieces, they're going to run right back to your teammates and say, well, what do y'all think about him saying this about you guys needing a couple more pieces and you're a couple pieces away from competing? That's just natural. That's part of the business. I don't think that anybody should really be shocked by that as much as they should just understand that it's going to be like this with Kyrie. It's going to be like this when you get KD too. They're going to be moody. They might bust somebody's tail one night and still be moody that entire time. You just can't count on them. The mood is not indicative of how they're playing and vice versa. So Brooklyn fans getting upset and worried about it, don't be. It's what's going to happen. Let me tell you about it. You're going to see it a lot. That was just a wild one. Like, okay, come on, dog. You can't talk about them needing to be, we need one more piece. You shot 6 of 21. Like, be better. Maybe we could get, we wouldn't need anymore. But hey, whatever. Another great story, Markelle Fultz Full speed ahead. My man was dealing with the thoracic outlet syndrome, missed most of his first couple of years in the league, and now has been playing some good ball. He's averaging about 11 points for the year, but the past 3-4 games he's had 16, 6, 5, 8, and 6, 6. We saw the replays of him bodying quote-unquote LeBron. LeBron was probably selling it a little bit, but he still allowed Fultz to move him out the way to get his bucket. So I just like to see these kind of stories. I told you I'm a big fan of redemption. I'm a big fan of comebacks, and this kid was being dragged for getting injured and having to refine his stroke. I put that on the Sixers. I mean, we saw them do it a lot, so I don't know why everybody tried to jump on him and blame him for it. That's not his fault. You know, Sixers, check out that medical staff, man. It's too many problems like that. But to see him go out and have the success that he's having with Orlando, and shouts to Orlando for taking a chance on him. It's a great story, and I don't know how you could not root for him and everything that he's gone through and what he's doing now on the floor. Trade happened today. Jeff Teague was sent from the Minnesota Timberwolves to the Atlanta Hawks. The Hawks have decided to pivot away from trying to pursue Andre Jammin. They will now turn their focus to Steven Adams. That's per Chris Haynes of Yahoo. The Wolves plan to go hard for D'Angelo Russell. That's courtesy of John Krasinski of The Athletic. Now, Teague news aside, the Wolves' pursuit of D'Angelo Russell is interesting because any thoughts of them trading with the Warriors was figured to involve Karl Anthony Towns. But as we all know, Karl Anthony Towns and D'Angelo Russell are friends, and the whole purpose of them trying to pursue D'Angelo this past offseason was so that the two of them could play together. I'm not sure how any deal works for the Warriors without including that, but I'm not sure that anything that the Wolves want to do should include Karl Anthony Towns anyway. Maybe they include a package around Andrew Wiggins and something like that, but that extension makes that tricky. It's a situation to monitor because it's not the first time, and it sounds like both sides are really open to doing a deal. Sounds like Russell is open to it, and just one of those things. Like I said, keep an eye on it because it's any way it can turn, but there's too much smoke here to not be some kind of fire. James Harden. Last episode, I did a segment talking about Jimmy Butler's piece in the Players Tribune where he talked about James Harden being the most unguardable player in the NBA today. Talked about a step back, talked about how he sizes up, he's got a counter to every counter, all that kind of good stuff. Well, over his last 5, James Harden is shooting 32.4% from the floor, 27.7% from 3, and Houston is 2-7. So, always don't bring it up because I gave him all that praise. I cannot give him all that praise and not proceed to tell you about how the man really did stink it up following any of all of that. So, a little bit depressing, a little bit sad to see. I wish that he was able to maintain the efficiency, but that's what happens when you shoot it all that way. You're going to go through sometime. He's a great shooter. He will bounce back out of it. That's not something that I think anybody should be worried about, let alone anything that he should be really being criticized for having a brief slump. That happens. It happens to all the great players, and he'll come out of it. I still stand by what Jimmy was saying. Jimmy called him great. I'm going to call him great. That's how it goes with that one. Kristaps Porzingis is going to miss more time. He had his knee pain return. It's the opposite knee from the ACL tear. He can't seem to avoid injury, and that's something that you got to wonder about with the Mavs paying him and the plans that they had for him and Luka Doncic together. If he can't maintain his health, man, that's going to be a rough thing for them to try to work through. Tonight's games, the rest of tonight's games, aside from that Pelicans-Jazz game, the Phoenix Suns down the New York Knicks 121-98. DeAndre Ayton had 26 points and a career-high 21 boards. It's good to see him back after that suspension for the PEDs. Devin Booker had 29 points, 4-4. The Phoenix Suns have won 3 of their last 4. They're trying to get that mojo back that they had earlier on in the year. They kind of went back to being themselves, and now they're trying to refine their groove like Stella back in the 90s. Julius Randle had 26, 6, and 3 for the Knicks. RJ Barrett left this game with an ankle injury and left the arena on crutches. Keep an eye out for that injury. The Boston Celtics fell to the Milwaukee Bucks 123-128. Kemba Walker had 40 points and 11 boards in this game. Only 3 assists, but 40 and 11. Good Lord, man. Marcus Smart 24-4. Jason Tatum had 17-7. Daniel Tice had 12-10. Now, for the Bucks, Giannis was a man. He was 0 for 5 from 3, but he put up a 32, 17-7 line. Still dominant, still looking like he could go and get an MVP award again this year. It's going to be him and Harden, in my estimation. Chris Middleton had 23, 6, and 4. Brook Lopez had 16 points. Dante DiVincenzo had 19 points off the bench. Shout out to Villanova. And then you had George Hill with 13 points, 3 for 3 coming off the bench himself. The Denver Nuggets went to overtime against the Golden State Warriors. Will Barton for the Nuggets had 31, 5, and 7. Nikola Jokic had 23, 12, and 8. However, he had 8 turnovers. Now, we're going to kill a lot of players for doing that exact thing. You can't let him get the slide for it because a lot of people like him and he's a funny-looking player because of his body style. Malik Beasley had 27 points off the bench. Michael Porter Jr., if you follow me on Pippen Ain't Easy, where I write about the Bulls, I said that Wendell Carter Jr. is a good player who's currently injured. Wendell Carter Jr. is, I wrote this before he got hurt. He's a good player, but he's not Michael Porter Jr. good. And tonight, MPJ, 18, 10, 5, 6 of 10 from the floor, 3 of 3 from 3. Sounds good. You know, Wendell's had some good games, but there's a difference. All points aren't created equal. Every 2 ain't the same. Every 3 ain't the same. Every dunk ain't the same. Every rebound ain't the same. Michael Porter Jr. is a player that energizes his teammates, the fan base, and I think has a superstar ceiling. He does this in limited minutes coming off the bench on a deep team. The kid's going to be special. Mason Plumlee also had 15 and 15 and 4. 15 and 15. Come on now. For the Warriors, 21 points, 6 assists, 4 rebounds for Damian Lee. D'Lo, 19 points, 9 and 3. We just talked about him and potentially getting traded. They finally let him play again. They were not trying to let him get injured. People were speculating they might move him or they were just trying to tank. Probably a little bit of both, to be honest with you. Alec Burks had 25 points in this game. Glenn Robinson had 17, 6 and 3. He's having a quietly good season I don't think enough people are talking about. And then finally, the Magic fell 95 points to the Clippers, 122. Kawhi Leonard had 32 points, 5 boards, 5 assists. Montrezl Harrell had 21 and 5 off the bench. They did not have Paul George in this game. He had that hammy. You've seen Kawhi become a little bit more offensive in this time, and I think that that's something that's good for this team to figure out because they're going to need him to do a lot more of the heavy lifting than they probably planned on. But the crazy thing about this, Aaron Gordon. Another player that I wrote about for Pippen Ain't Easy, and the Bulls should make a trade for because I'm not of the volition that Lauri Markkanen can be that number 2. I'm not sure if Aaron Gordon could be a number 2, but I think he can be a good supporting cast on this a good role player on this team, and where if they put him in the trade package for Lowry, put him with Otto Porter and put him with Wendell Carter, that defense behind Zach and Kobe is crazy good. You have shooting with Zach, Kobe, and Otto Porter. Wendell has an ability to step out some, and Aaron Gordon can step out some. That's a dangerous lineup. That's very athletic and very good defensively. I think that is something that should be pursued. I'm probably gonna have to bring that back up because that's 20 and 5 tonight for Aaron Gordon as he found the shot. He didn't do too much on the glass, but he can give you that too on any given night. Nikola Vucevic, though, in that game did have 22 and 9. Shout out to him for continuing to have a good year after receiving his big money. After everybody thought for sure that he was just going to go back to being a mid-level player at best. That's going to do it for this episode of Triple Zeros. Follow me on Twitter, as mentioned, at Josh G. Buck. Hit up the Facebook page at Triple Zeros, TRIPLZROS. Hit up the website, jukesjumps.wordpress.com. Please make sure that you are hitting up and leaving comments on the website, on the Facebook page, on the Twitter. Let me know what you think. Let me know if you want to talk about something, if you want to be part of the show. Until the very next time, I have to say it, as I say all the time, horns, I'm gone, deuces, all those things, however you want to say it. Auf Wiedersehen, goodbye. It's time to sign off.